Consensus Hong Kong 2025 is where the global crypto community converges to shape the next era of Web3. From February 18th through the 20th, Hong Kong becomes the meeting point for leaders across finance, technology, and digital assets. This isn't just a conference, it's where deals are made, partnerships are forged, and new opportunities emerge. Consensus features exclusive networking lounges, expert-led sessions, and invaluable insights from top industry voices. Whether you're expanding your network, building your brand, or closing your next big deal, this is the event that moves markets. Visit CoinDesk.com/consensus-HK to secure your spot and use Real Vision 15 for 15% off. Don't miss your chance to be part of the industry's defining moment.
All right, we're here again. Another week of REKT Vision. Pretty good week. We had an all-time high for Bitcoin, an all-time high for Solana again. Everything kind of went a bit nuts. I guess at this time last week, the Trump meme coin hadn't even existed.
Mental, isn't it?
Which is kind of crazy. Before we get into things, obviously, we've been talking about it a lot. We have the crypto gathering for Real Vision coming up in Miami. Ovi's going to be there, play some golf with him. Go to realvision.com/CG2025. We still have some general admission tickets. It's always a great event. You're going to get to meet a bunch of different people in the community, and also some of the faces like Raul and Ovi. I'm still 50-50. But maybe we'll get into stuff now. It does feel like an absolute age since we last did this show. It started off with a Trump meme coin coming out basically in the evening after our show last week. Then one from Melania on the Sunday. Then Trump gets in. And this week we've got a range of different crypto executive orders around crypto assets, particularly in the US. A bit more broad than I think people were expecting. I think people were expecting just a Bitcoin focused one. And it seems like it could be a range of different assets. But how do you feel about the market here, OSF? Do you think people have wildly different expectations when I go down the timeline? People are like, "Oh, we've topped." And other people are like, "Well, how can you ever be bearish again?" Where are you in this?
It's just a bit all over the place, isn't it? And I think I'm someone who's usually always wired pretty bullish, and obviously for the last 2 or 3 years I've been very bullish and buying a lot of risk. And after you've had that big move and you've had that move through all-time highs, if you're someone who was early to the move, you always start questioning yourself, and it's like, oh, should I be taking more profits here? Is the move kind of done? Where does it end? So those are always the thoughts that are going through my mind. Now, on paper, on the face of it, what's just happened is the most bullish thing we've ever seen for crypto. You have a full-on crypto task force in the US. You have Hester Pierce taking a senior position within the SEC to work on this stuff, and they're doing a complete U-turn on all this stuff that they were trying to clamp down on last year. If you saw the David Sachs interview yesterday, he clearly said collectibles like meme coins and NFTs, not referring to those things as securities. The Trump coin, I'm sure we'll talk about that. That was literally launched in the USA, when this entire time you've had people trying to go offshore to launch tokens and stuff. So it just feels like the US has done a complete U-turn from trying to regulate and clamp down on this stuff to now accepting it and trying to drive innovation and activity to the US. I mean, you even had A16Z today say they're pulling back out of the UK and now back into the US to invest there. So these developments are just structurally extremely bullish for the industry from a long-term perspective. And I have no doubt it will result in a significantly larger amount of participants, both in terms of builders, creators, investors, also opening up probably to a wider range of institutional investors. It's huge. It's incredible. The question is, how long does all this stuff take to happen? How long until you actually do get a Bitcoin reserve and all this kind of stuff? And what sort of price action do we have in between? How are people positioned right now? Were people really long into this event? Those are all the things that cross your mind. And make you wonder whether like, you have a bit of a pullback or a bit of consolidation before we get to those levels, or can we truly get there? I mean, last 2 days I was feeling a little bit conservative, and after I just said what I said, now I'm feeling like really bullish again. But it's hard to really know. It's also really hard to know what to own, because I think if you're like me, and I think many people in the space, you benchmark yourself to Bitcoin. So you're always trying to outperform Bitcoin, and you're trying to find like the higher beta version of Bitcoin. And for a while, that was pretty easy to do. Like, you just bought meme coins that worked really well. Prior to that, you could have bought like ETH, Solana, NFTs. And it's now becoming more challenging if you're not an active trader to just buy something and hold it for weeks and months, because these narratives and metas keep changing. And, you had AI stuff did really well, and then it pulled back, and then meme coins came back, then it pulled back. Then you had Trump, and then that's pulled back. And unless you're like constantly moving in and out of these positions and timing them very well, it's hard to really hold on to it. And right now I'm positioned like it's the first time I've owned a lot of Bitcoin in a long time, because I just don't know, without being an active trader, I just don't know what I can hold and be happy with over a longer time frame. And I just don't have the time to like day trade or even trade on like a weekly basis. Like I can't keep up with this stuff. I just need to be able to buy and hold some stuff. And right now it's just Bitcoin. So
yeah, that you said a lot there, and I think a lot of that, yeah, I agree with a lot of it. It's been very PvP on the stuff that isn't majors. But maybe let's break down kind of what happened firstly. Maybe we'll start chronologically. So we'll start with the Trump meme coin, because I think it's probably useful to talk about everything. Trump came out on Friday night, obviously had this gala dinner on the Friday, the crypto ball they called it, and announced that he was doing a meme coin. In the past, he's done NFT projects, ordinals projects. There'd been some like unofficial or linked meme coins, but he came out and said, look, this is going to be the official Trump meme coin. If you were in US hours, you maybe had a chance to buy it. I think it came out around 10 p.m. Eastern, or maybe 9 p.m. Eastern. Most European people were asleep. And that thing went up to 20 billion FDB, then 30, then all the way up to 70, 75, and then has had a pullback now back down to kind of the 30-ish range. Firstly, let's talk about why he would have done this, because though he does have 80% of the supply, there's clearly like monetary reasons why you could say he would own this, but he also seemingly launched his token in, pretty, I wouldn't say reckless, but if it wouldn't be the most legally sound way to do something like this, right? Traditionally, if you're launching these sort of things, particularly if you're an entity, you wouldn't keep as much centralized control. You wouldn't be advertising it, and thirdly, like you probably would consider doing it in a legal structure, or most people do it offshore even. He's kind of gone and done it and just said, yeah, I launched it, I'm promoting it, I've got all the supply. It kind of, what you said before was that it's now just a free reign. What we've seen since then is loads of people considering creating tokens, like very, very big celebrities, brands. It's kind of open season now because of the way that he did it. What was your take on, maybe firstly, do you think Trump, are you going to be owning the Trump meme coin? What do you think about it first?
Yeah, I mean, I did own it for a little bit and I sold it. I think from an attention economy standpoint, and we all know how important that is in crypto, I think we haven't even scratched the surface of the amount of attention Trump is going to command over the next 4 years. And I mean, I just remember sitting at Barclays in 2016 to 2020, and I would have my Bloomberg screens and all my risk up and everything. And the other thing I'd have out would be like a Trump's Twitter feed, because every time he said something, it would literally move like the entire market, and you had to just be so fixated on that. So I think we were going to see that, but we're just going to see that to like another factor. Like I think it's going to be even more crazy this time around. And I just have to think, like every time he says something crazy or does something crazy, like this coin moves higher. Now, so from an attention standpoint, I think this is going to probably be like the number one attention coin this year. The caveat or the counterpoint to that, and the thing that concerns me about it, is 85% of the supply is held by the team, and there's a 3-month cliff, so probably sometime in March, I guess, or April, it starts vesting, and then you're just going to have like a large amount of supply coming to the market like forever. Basically, it's like a daily unlock. So, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm mid-curving it, and maybe the attention economy that he commands is going to outweigh that, and it will still go high. That's a very real possibility, but that's the part I'm a bit concerned about. If it wasn't for that, and if like 100% of the supply was like circulating, then I would probably have a position in it. I still feel like it's going to be one of those things you can't really ignore. But I'm just a bit concerned about the supply, and given the levels it's at now, I think you need to have like a big position in it to to get a decent return out of it. So that's my take on it now. I think if it drops back to 25 or 20 or even below that, then I think it's worth a bit of a gamble, for sure. I think there's going to be a level to buy it. I just don't feel like it's yet now. Is my hunch there?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be easily have the most attention to it. But this was a big win for a lot of people. You probably have to digest a lot of people who want to sell off the back of that, and then you have the supply coming. There is also a case, and what we saw over that weekend was that it was almost just too big for Solana. Like every other Solana coin had to fall, actually fell like 30 to 50% while Trump came out, because everyone had to sell their holdings to buy Trump. And Solana's FTV is what, 150-ish? So when this was trading at like 75, it was a huge bit of Solana's ecosystem right there. And I think part of this may be that Solana really has to go quite a bit higher for this to be almost sustainable. They only got 10 billion of stable coins on Solana, although that's up a lot. It's tough to sustain a coin that high. That being said, like I do think it probably could be one of the coins to own over the next 4 years. There's going to be some short-term supply to digest, I reckon, as in that initial cliff, and then everyone freaking out. But I do think this is the sort of coin that could go a decent amount higher, honestly. And it could even be one of the bull cases for Solana here if it really starts going higher. Like I just said, Solana needs to be bigger to help satiate how big some of these coins that want to come onto it are going to be. So I think that was one.
Do you think that's a Solana needs to be bigger thing? Or I think your comment there was like every other coin had to sell off, but is that more just a sign of like it's still the same people within crypto who are just trading this stuff around, and there hasn't really been like enough new liquidity come in to be able to support those moves? Like I think that's the other thing that sort of like concerns me, that you just still get these like liquidity sucks where things feel very PvP rather than everything being able to rally in like this parallel fashion like we saw in 2021. Like it still feels like that to me at the moment.
I felt like that changed for me a few months ago, around the time of the election. I did think a bunch of new people came in. That being said, like I did look at the value of Solana meme coins the other day, and it's 23 billion, give or take, and it was 22 billion in November. And that since then, that figure includes Fartcoin and AI16Z and Go and Trump. So we've only added 1 billion of net value to Solana memes, let's say, which includes Trump and many of the larger AI coins. And that got me thinking, yeah, it's become very PvP out there, at least in the meme coins. And we'll get into that, like what maybe trades you can kind of put on. But I think that's a very, very valid point. And I do think that, let's say, like I just said, I think it's open season now for coins. I think there's a world where you could see sports teams come out with a coin very quickly. You could see like a big brand like Nike come out with a coin very quickly. There's talk about people like Twitch or Kick, these big streaming platforms. Maybe they'll just drop a coin. And if that's going to be on Solana, it does feel like everything has to sell off for that to have a multi-billion-dollar valuation. So, but we did see after that, straight away, Solana hit an all-time high, right? And then it's continued to kind of outperform since then. It's today, it's up at 266, even with other bits of the market lower. And you did see stable coins start to rush in. So the stable coin supply on Solana has doubled, basically, or is up like 60 just over 60% since the Trump meme coin. So money is coming in. There is new holders. I think it just takes a little bit of time still. Like, I think we all just assume like it's instantly going to get millions of new holders and maybe tens of millions of new stables. But that sort of figure, I think, takes a little bit of time. It does make me incredibly bullish on Solana still. That I think it will go higher. As you know, maybe you didn't buy the Trump coin, but you might buy LeBron's coin, or you might buy somebody else who comes in and does something. So that was my main takeaway from that, really. Trump to 100 billion, I think, can happen. I don't. Maybe it's not a this year thing. Maybe it's a next year thing. But I do think he's one of the most like memed or followed people out there, right? And I just get the feeling that a lot of people are going to focus on this coin. So that was my main takeaway. That happened on the Friday. Interestingly, then his wife came out with a coin, Melania, on Sunday, and the market really dumped then of all the other Solana meme coins, because everyone was like, right, well, now we're going to have a constant stream of coins. And then I think even his coin dropped about 40% when that came out. But since then, we have seen no more coins from the Trump. So maybe it is just those two, although a lot of speculation about different family members coming out with coins or unofficial coins. And now we're kind of in this post-Trump world. Then I guess then we'll go into the inauguration and kind of what was really announced yesterday, which obviously for most people or many people will be the bigger piece of news, which is this huge bit of crypto executive orders, which was around the creation of strategic reserves, essentially for US, not US-based assets, but for US crypto assets. And there's going to be a criteria, which I think David Sachs is going to lead the team that's going to decide which of these assets pass that. The initial kind of front runners, I would say, are Solana, XRP, Circle, USDC has been mentioned, even though it's just a stable, and maybe a few others like ETH got mentioned potentially, and a couple of others. They said they hinted at the idea that they might build up this reserve via confiscated assets rather than going out there and buying them. And I guess some other stuff they mentioned, no CBDC in the US. They mentioned that they're going to put forward a broader crypto regulatory framework. As David Sachs said yesterday, meme coins and NFTs broadly are going to be classed as collectibles, which might sit outside of all of this. And then there might be specific stuff for utility coins or even security-like coins, you know. I personally thought this was unbelievably bullish for crypto as well. This for me felt like the most that they could possibly do. Did it? But the market didn't actually react that well. Bitcoin went lower off the back of that. What was your take on it all?
I think, as I said, like long term, it's extremely, extremely bullish. These are not like, you know, spraying deodorant over a very smelly person. These are full on like having a shower. Like it's a very, very, you like that?
I've never heard that metaphor before. Okay.
Yeah, I just made that one up actually, but I think it works quite well. But these are big, big structural changes that are going to be amazing for the industry over multiple years, decades probably. But these things, as I said, like these things don't happen overnight. And you know how short-term minded a lot of the speculative market is within crypto. And I think, you know, people probably went risk on. People probably had like big levered trades on, hoping that they would specifically announce a Bitcoin reserve and specifically announce a Bitcoin purchase program and start right away. You know, I was reading my timeline and I didn't have that expectation personally because I know these things take a long time, but I think lots of people did. I mean, there is some chats that I'm in with you where people were like, where I was just like, yeah, I don't know if they'll announce that. And they're like, oh no, they're going to announce that and they're going to buy Bitcoin. They're going to announce all this stuff. Like, and you know, none of it really happened. So I think like, you know, if you're a retail person and you have a big levered long into that, there wasn't really that many liquidations yesterday, but you probably get a bit worried that they're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting or what I was hoping for, and kind of missing the forest for the trees, really, given like how bullish it is what they said. So I think the pullback was because I think short term speculators wanted a bit more action today. Yes, they wanted more action yesterday. You know what I mean? And it's not like, people were probably thinking this is like the ETF thing of last year when everyone knows it's going to happen, but it's not done until it's done. And when it's done, things will go a lot higher. And then with the ETS, it got approved and it started trading 2 days later and we started getting inflows. And then it was just like crazy, right? And I think maybe people were in that mindset of like, oh, this gets approved. Next week, the US starts buying Bitcoin and it's going to go crazy. Like, I think that's what people were hoping for. And that's clearly not what we're going to get. So it's not to say the news wasn't bullish at all, because it was. Like, I read some of that stuff and thinking, man, this is like insanely positive for crypto, but you're not getting like the actual buying pressure tomorrow or next week or possibly even next month, which is maybe what people were hoping for to, sell into or something like that. So that's my explanation of why we saw the price action we did. And, maybe Bitcoin didn't rally as much as it usually does because it talked about digital assets and not just Bitcoin. So now it's a bit like, okay, which other coins will be involved? It's a bit less clear, I think, as to what's going on. And I also think like talking about using the term digital asset stockpile feels very different to strategic Bitcoin reserve. Even though they could potentially kind of mean the same thing, it's different terminology. And if you're a retail trader who doesn't know much and you see a different term, you're kind of a little bit like, is that it? Is that not it? Like, what's going on here? And I think the other thing is also like David Sachs, even like in the interview confirmed, he was like, we are evaluating this idea. They didn't like confirm that they're actually going to do it. They said they're evaluating it. So it does mean the positive thing I'd have to say back to it is like, we sold off, then we've kind of like rallied back today. And it does mean I was like worried we wouldn't have any positive like catalysts to look forward to this year after that was kind of announced. It now does mean like, it sounds promising. It's not a done deal, but it sounds promising. What he's saying is very promising. And it does mean we have stuff to look forward to this year that's fundamentally positive for crypto, which is a potential announcement of this stockpile, potentially other assets away from Bitcoin, some changes to the way, the US looks at crypto in terms of securities, commodities, collectibles, like all these official things that are now potential catalysts to look forward to that aren't done deals that I don't think are priced in, but could maybe act as like, a North Star for this year for some kind of like positive crypto price action. So, I've gone from like, being like, oh, this could be sell the news or, what's left, what are the catalysts are left, to like being like, okay, we didn't get the action we wanted to T0, but it's now created some future catalysts, which I think can be a 2025 events that I do think we can rally into. And we'll start to see and hear speculation come through. And it might be a bit of headline tennis, we may get some negative headlines as well, but at least like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of things to look at here. Like we have the asset stockpile. You have, is it just Bitcoin or other assets? If other assets, which assets? Are NFTs and meme coins collectibles? If so, can anyone just launch all the stuff in the US? Like there's loads of different things now that have previously been unanswered questions that we should get answers to. And it's clear to me that they're pushing the US as a crypto hub and pushing innovation and activity and encouraging people to not leave the US now and do their business in the US. So you have to think it's going to be very conducive to the crypto industry, which has to be bullish. So I think, it's just, how do you play that? What do you buy? Like, apart from Bitcoin, what do you, I still don't know. I still don't know what that move is. Like, well, AI,
I read that and didn't necessarily want to buy Bitcoin. Like you said, it was a bit more broad, which made me think that Bitcoin dominance could actually come down. But I also think that, the misconceptions there were kind of wild, because executive order, you can't spend Congress's money. You can't spend taxpayers' money via executive orders. It has to go through Congress. I think Trump actually got into a fight with this during his first term when he tried to build the wall via executive order and then got caught up in like a legal battle around it. So they can only really do this sort of stuff where they give it, like, they actually set out a framework, or they do something non-monetary, essentially. Now, I do think there is a plan potentially for which Senator Loomis has put forward, which is kind of to sell some of the gold reserves that the US has and move them into Bitcoin. But that would have to, I would 100% imagine it would have to go through Congress to be able to do that. So, and she's been put in a slightly stronger position, this senator from Wyoming, to I think she's now chairing one of the Senate subcommittees on crypto. So there's an expectation that they'll be able to maybe bring some form of legislation to the House around this, or the Senate, sorry, and then we'll see where it goes. But I kind of felt like what he said was the maximum he could possibly say, which is, we're going to do it. We're going to make sure we don't sell any of the stuff that we have, basically, or potentially not sell any of the stuff that we have. And I guess it wasn't as day one we're having a Bitcoin reserve. It was a little bit like, we're going to go through a process of working out if this is the best thing to do. But I kind of feel like that's also best. You know, you don't just want to come, the US president, I don't think, coming out and basically being like, we need a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I think that would have been maybe a bit too far. Like, at least like having a bit of a process here where they listen to people and decide what to do, I think is probably the best one. So, and the rest of the legislation does sound incredibly bullish. They seem very pro-business, both in terms of how they're going to treat current assets, but also encouraging businesses to come back to the US. And going back to that first point, because Trump has just done this like coin, which didn't really pass a lot of the legal smell test, I think it's a free reign for a lot of people to come back, kind of do some fun stuff with crypto. So it's kind of that, plus the meme coin itself, I think now sets this very fertile ground for people to come in and explore with crypto a bit more, which I think will be very bullish.
So what do you buy? What are you long? Like what's the tell me, what's the 6-month trade here?
Honestly,
Bitcoin. What's the 6-month trade?
I thought it was Solana, just hands down. I thought Solana just seems to me to be the hands down. Trump meme coin on Solana. I think that will always be that will see the lion's share of new token issuance, in my opinion, just because of the way it's set up. Secondly, in terms of this, because it wasn't just mentioned as Bitcoin, it was mentioned as a strategic, like a more broader base of crypto. Well, Solana is US, right? Alongside, and there's the other prominent ones would be XRP, Chainlink. I'm trying to think of which other like big ones, but Liberty Financial bought a couple of them. So it's US founders. David Sachs was a seed investor in Solana, right? Famously had that interview on All In where they were talking about selling some of their tokens, although they've all denied that they did that. But so he's clearly cognizant of that and has been a promoter of it since the early doors. And I also think that all the stuff that we spoke about in terms of L1 regulation or regulation of the space in general will encourage L1 use more than potentially even Bitcoin use. So I felt like Solana was the real obvious one. I think Solana can fly here, like honestly fly. And I've been saying that for a while before. We have the unlocks now coming thick and fast. But my first takeaway was Solana. And then my second takeaway, which I guess I've been speaking to you a bit more about, is like Solana DeFi. I felt, because although I think it's more difficult to pick winners right now in the altcoin Solana space, as in terms of AI or memes or that sort of stuff. I do think that what we will see is huge DeFi volumes go through. We saw $200 billion of DEX volume go through Solana this month. And I bought a decent bag of Radium, which is kind of one of the best flywheel tokens in Solana, because they use the fees to buy back the token, and that it integrates straight into Pump Fund. All Pump Fund coins go to Radium, and I think 55-60% of all Jupiter's volumes go through Radium. So it's like it's very, very ingrained in Solana DeFi, and this has a good flywheel. So I was bullish on Sol and Sol DeFi on the back of that. I could be bullish on a lot of different Sol ecosystem coins, but it's very difficult to underwrite them in big size when, LeBron might drop a coin. Because as we just said, like, things can nuke. When Melania dropped her coin, AI coins dropped like 30-40% in a day. I feel like, I don't see how those two are really related, other than they're just, Solana's not big enough to be able to deal with the amount of money that needs to flow into the next gamble. So
it's a good point, isn't it? Like, Sol ripped when Trump dropped his coin. Sol rallied a little bit when Melania dropped her coin. Like, if you're trying to protect yourself from that stuff, it seems like buying Sol is the way to go. And it does feel like if you're launching a new coin, that's where you're going to go, because that's where all the volumes are, it's where all the holders are, it's the cheapest to use. Do you have any thoughts on World Liberty Fi just buying all this ETH ecosystem stuff and not really buying anything Solana related? Like, is that a reason to be long ETH over Sol, just to kind of do what the Trumps are doing, or do you think they're just mid-curving it and ignoring Sol?
I think World Liberty Financial buying ETH with some of their treasury is not as big a thing as Trump dropping a meme coin on Solana. And that where the token creation stuff will happen, that basically points to it being Solana. I think the World Liberty thing was more to do with like DeFi. Like maybe we will see. I think they're trying to do kind of their own DeFi project. But to be clear, World Liberty Financial is the Trump's son, right? It's a Trump related project. Trump can't actually like be involved in that project in any sort of way. There's even questions about like if he's allowed to have this meme coin, because you're not really meant to have financial interest in anything when you're the president, right? So I would kind of see the World Liberty Financial thing as more separate to Trump here, and just because they bought some ETH, I wouldn't necessarily think that was. I mean, if they buy ETH, what does that mean? Like, oh, they're buying it because the Trumps are buying it. I feel like what I really want to get on the top of is who's going to be issuing tokens? Who's going to be issuing tokens? And I don't think anyone's issuing tokens on ETH because Eric Trump bought some ETH. I think that they're doing it because Trump just issued his exact token on Solana. So I think that's a much bigger factor here. But I do think like majors look more attractive to me than a number of different alts right now, just because of what we just said. Like the liquidity suck. Apart from some of the DeFi coins, interestingly, just because I think no one's really looking at them, and they have some interesting tokenomics around them. But out of the three majors, Solana was definitely number one. Bitcoin for me, honestly, although Bitcoin dominance has kind of stayed where it was, it looked less interesting, particularly also because we've seen a number of ETFs now being filed, like rolling ETFs filed for a range of different altcoins right now. So maybe the institutional rails are going to be less of a wall for crypto, for Bitcoin even.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I think it definitely seems to be the case. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see what's going to happen. I think in the next few months, I think we're just going to see some big like structural changes, and there are going to be some trades to put on now that I think will be crazy, probably even in majors. That's just trying to figure it out. Like even I know lots of our viewers own Ripple, but I saw an interesting back and forth between the Ripple CEO and someone else. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it's sort of like accusations of like you guys have been speaking to the Trump guys and bribing them with Ripple and stuff like that, and starting to make sense to me. I mean, not bribing is the wrong word, I guess, like heavily lobbying, but it kind of makes sense to me. The Ripple rally now makes sense to me because of this idea of like, this is an American coin, these guys are lobbying the Trumps pretty hard. Ripple, I guess, at higher prices, the tech looks better, and he goes back to the use case of like, oh, this could be, a real like mechanism of exchange and all this kind of stuff. So like, that's actually, I think, the reason why Ripple has rallied, not because of, oh, everyone's woken up and they're just buying all these dinosaur coins. Like, that's not the reason why. I think it's clear to me now that that's what's going on. But that's the kind of thing. I guess we missed that trade, or maybe there's more of it to go. I don't really know, but I think that's the kind of thing I'd love to get my ear to the ground to, like who's lobbying really hard on this stuff, and what are they going to push. And it does feel like, so I guess that's also another tailwind for Solana having US founders. I think like this idea of like American made stuff, I think is going to be championed for sure, as it should be. Like we were talking about like how all the stuff against Coinbase was ridiculous. It was like literally a US company listed on the NASDAQ, and they were trying to like crush it down. And while they let stuff like FTX in the Bahamas go, and all this other stuff. So it's good to see that they have their priorities straight and they're trying to push the right stuff that's actually better for the USA. But it kind of makes you realize that maybe that's the stuff you should be looking into and be long. Like if there's a US coin with a strong narrative. I mean, I saw, just for people who don't know, usually a lot of token structures are such that you maybe have like a US or a UK or whatever it is, labs-based company, but then you're token foundation is often offshore and a completely separate entity. And I saw today Blast, one of the L2s, have now combined the two. So the US entity actually now like owns the offshore entity, and it's all like one thing. And I think we'll see a lot more of that now. But it'll be interesting to see that kind of development as well. I think just it was so hard to launch a token before. Now it's going to be a lot easier. I mean, Trump just did it.
Right. I was speaking to a prominent law firm in the space yesterday, and they said, yeah, kind of they have clients coming into them being like, look, we're just going to launch it in the US, whereas they've been one of the big proponents of the offshore foundation. And they said, look, probably in 6 months you'll get more clearer regulation, but a lot of people are just willing to take the risk now. So, and I think it opens it up. Like, I think in some ways, the reason why I focus on the meme coin quite a bit at the start is because in some ways that's even the biggest thing. Yeah, it's the meme coin in the front, but what it really is he's done it, which means that anyone else can come and do it now. And that will extend across businesses to like more utility style coins, to meme coins, like big culture style coins, potentially. It is free, like it is open season now. You'll see big AI, like I would guess developers come in here, researchers do coins now. You'll see big celebrities. I think you'll see huge brands. We're starting to see some of like the old dying brand, like or dead brands come back. Like Vine did a coin this week, which is kind of funny. But you're going to see in the same way that like GameStop was basically a much loved brand, and then it created the meme stock. I think you'll see some of those old brands come in and kind of be like, yeah, we're going to create a coin. Why not? Like it is going to be open season for a lot of this sort of stuff. And that might extend to games, who knows? Like Pokemon, imagine if Pokemon came and did a coin. Like it is really, really made it open season for new, big drops or big projects coming in and doing coins, in my opinion. So, and that's why I get so bullish on Solana. Because I'm like, that's the big thing. I don't care if Eric Trump bought ETH, but there's going to be huge token creation stuff about to happen. There's so many different people looking at this now, thinking like, well, why don't we launch a coin? Why don't we can do it in the US now? And that's where the majority of like these big brands are housed anyway. So I think we're going to see some very, very cool stuff there. And in some way, it kind of just makes you want to hold Solana because, like, good stuff's going to happen. Yeah. And if you're all there at the right day, at the right time, you'll be able to catch it. You'll be able to catch one of these great coins. So, and that's what we've basically seen. Every single Solana meme coin is down horrendous over the last week. Every other narrative, because the value of Solana just went up massively in this world, and people know that when a new coin drops, like it's just going to be even worse. Like I don't even know what would happen to some of these coins if a big celebrity came out this Friday and dropped a coin. Right? It would be horrific.
Well, that's the thing. Like the other thing I said at the beginning, people maybe benchmark themselves to Bitcoin and want to outperform that. There's probably many people watching this right now who spend 95% of their time in the Solana ecosystem, and the game there is to multiply your SOL and outperform Solana. So it's a really hard thing to do when you hold on to positions and then something new comes and it sucks all the liquidity out. Like, it feels like it's going to be hard to, if you want like a buy and hold thing to outperform SOL, it's pretty hard to find anything away from that, unless there was perhaps one token that you could own which benefits from trading volumes and SOL. I don't know if there's.
That's why I own Radium. Radium. I think. Not obviously, I've said I've just bought some, but like I do think if you bring up the Radium chart, it does look a lot like the Sol DeFi volume chart. Like if you think Sol DeFi volumes are going to go up, it's very, very difficult to imagine that as a coin doesn't go high just because it's so ingrained. I think it bought back something like $15 million of worth of the coin this week, and it trades at like 2 billion. So yeah, it is. It's got a good flywheel going. The thing is, it really is just those things, like you're saying. Like I think other stuff can actually keep on going down here. because people will slowly come to the realization that it's going to be very, very tough for people to want to pump anything that isn't something new right now. And if you thought last year, if you're involved in any of this more left curve stuff, was PvP, people having to sell one thing to buy the other, and it was very difficult to like hold on to long-term value. Like the Murad thesis, like, oh, these are going to be the memes that like hold up really, really well. I don't know if you've seen the Murad memes this week, but it's going to be even worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
Your ability to hold on to something. So if you're up on any of these trades, and like if you are there looking at new coins each day and you're up on something, just take profits. I really, really would advise you to, because I'm seeing coins that go to 300 million and then literally down to like 5 million in 2 days. It's the attrition is unbelievable out there. I'm sure you've seen the same, Ovi.
Yeah.
People are going to screenshot incredible wealth and then you'll blink and it will be gone. So if you are doing that, I think take profits, and maybe don't do it with your whole portfolio. Just try and get in with the new stuff, I think.
Yeah, you have to, it's different to what last year was, where I felt like I could, this time last year I owned a whiff and I could just I held that for 3 months and made like 100x. Like, it's not that easy anymore. You do have to be super aware. Which is, if you're not a full-time trader, it's really hard. Like, I'm not a full-time trader anymore. I'm working on all the REKT stuff. You're not a full-time trader. You're working on all the to be announced soon project stuff. So I think many people here will have full-time jobs. So it's really hard to do it, I think, which is why I think those that are just glued to the screens 24/7 trade this stuff has such a massive advantage. I'm seeing lots of people out there making a ton of money. I mean, if you're like young, single, like no kids or anything like that, and you just have all the time in the world to like no real full-time job, and you have all the time in the world to just literally sit at your laptop and trade the stuff, you could make an absolute killing, I think, and lots of people are. So
they are, but then they have to take profits. This is the point.
Yeah.
What I've seen even more this time is that people make wild gains, even with Trump, right? I think a lot of people printed amazing gains, and then maybe even they got back in, and then it's gone lower again, or they've overtraded. Like, the volatility on some of these coins is unbelievable. They go down to zero as fast as they go up at the moment, even faster than they did last year. I think last year you probably had like 2 or 3 days of a meta, really, of like a coin led, and then other coins would follow, and that coin would maybe like get to a terminal velocity of around 300, 400 million, and then you'd see if it would go to billion or not. Now it just literally goes to 300 million in the blink of an eye and then back down again. So you have to be wildly quick if you're going to monetize some of those trades, which makes you just volumes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you just have to be you have to be plugged in, you have to be quick. You can mismove. I mean, these metas you're talking about, we've been through about like 5 of them in the last week or something like that. Like, the Trump coin, as we said, wasn't even announced at this time last week, and so much stuff has happened since then. So you just have to, I don't know, it's tricky. I think it's tricky. I think there's a lot to be made, but you really have to be. So it's divorce season, basically. You really have to.
Divorce season. Yeah. That Friday, I think Trump ruined a lot of marriages on that Friday night. Came out at like 3 a.m. The whole weekend was just like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do much this weekend.
It was revenge of the husbands there. It's like, I listened to you and this is what happened and I missed this. Like,
everyone can relate to that, particularly if you're in a European time zone. That's the other thing. What Ovi just said, you need to be young, single, but you also need to be, willing to stay up to like 2 a.m. if you're in Europe, or 3 a.m. in Europe, which isn't exactly ideal. Although I know a bunch of people that do that. They literally just live US hours, but they're based in Europe. Right. I don't know if you want to.
Should we do some questions? Yeah, let me pull them up. Let's see. As usual, before we do the questions, I'm just going to showcase some pro content on Real Vision. This week we had Sebastian Purcell host a monthly roundtable of crypto fund managers. You can hear insights on that about Trump's policies, meme coins, macro picture, much more. If you're a pro crypto subscriber, you can check out the video. If not, you can sign up on realvision.com to watch it. Okay, first question we have from Bernardo on the Real Vision website. What do you guys think about Sui's correction? Is it over? Sui, I think, has kind of underperformed the market a little bit, dropping from about 5 to 4.5 or so in the past week. Any thoughts on that?
I thought, I said kind of even this time last week, I thought Sui was looking too high versus Solana. That wasn't a looking bad on Sui. That was more just Sol looked cheap. Sol's now repriced. Maybe Sui goes higher, but I don't think Sui passes any of that test either. Potentially, I don't know. Like maybe it is US. I mean, partly US founders. I honestly don't know. I know that they're the ex-Meta team, but I don't know where they're based now. No one has mentioned Sui in these sort of US crypto asset conversations. So my guess is it's probably not like in the first for the running to be deemed as like a strategic asset in the US. It didn't get, hasn't taken part in this whole meme coin season generally, and not really in the AI season either. So I've thought for a while that Sui has turned into way more of a show me story than it was at like 5 to 10 billion. Right now, it really does have to have substantial amount of stuff going on it at 40 to 50 billion. So for it to go to 100, I think it'd have to see a big application unlock, or a big, like, you have to see a lot of people come onto the chain and start using it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it was maybe seen as Solana beta before, or maybe even a Solana killer before, and then you had this whole Trump stuff take over. And I guess the biggest counterpoint to Sui is like there isn't much activity on there. So Solana, it's not shifting away from Solana, and I think given what happened with Trump, it doesn't feel like that's going to change anytime soon as well. So I think a lot of money moved from Sui to Sol actually in the last week, which is why you've seen that underperformance. And maybe you can have a short-term technical correction, but from narrative standpoint, it's hard to beat what's going on with Sol at the moment, I think. Next question from JP. Should it matter that we didn't actually get an SBR? Given that we've got an executive order for digital assets, doesn't that alone send an implied signal to kick off the nation state race to accumulate? Why do markets seem to lag on realizing this?
I agree with you. Like, I think that even if they didn't get 100% a strategic Bitcoin reserve, what this does say to me is if I'm a G20 country, you can see where this is headed. Like, you don't have to be Einstein to work out what's probably going to happen here. So I do think it creates a little bit of a game theory where some other country might be like, yeah, we need to move a little bit quicker on this. And that probably extends to, sovereign institutions as well as corporates even. So I would be very unsurprised if, even if the US hasn't already gone to a explicit Bitcoin reserve, you don't start to see companies and other countries and maybe sovereign wealth funds explicitly go for this now. Yeah,
I think I agree. I think, like I said earlier, I think an actual SBR would have been much more bullish because it was just specific to what was happening. And I feel like digital asset stockpile is a bit vague, and you don't really know exactly what the plan is there. And I know it opens up to other tokens, but we still don't know. Like, they have to go through that process of discussing it. And that kind of I guess it weakens the nation state race if it's other assets. But I just think that stuff will come to a head very quickly. I think there are plenty of states within the US looking at buying Bitcoin now that I was reading about. And I think, obviously Trump was meeting with the El Salvador president yesterday, who bought a lot of Bitcoin back in 2021. So I think that stuff will escalate. yes, market seemed, on the one hand, you can say market seemed to lag on realizing it. On the other hand, you can say it's being priced in and people are positioning for it already. So I think there are two sides to the coin there. But again, it's one of those things, until these guys actually physically start buying or are very close to doing it, I don't think you unlock that next move higher. Next question from Ryan on YouTube. How high do you think the Trump meme would have gone if he wouldn't have tweeted his wife's damn meme? Good question.
Honestly, it was a huge fumble in my opinion. It would have gone so much higher. And I think also the other thing was that it made what I just said. I really came to the realization that we were going to get this massive dump essentially across the board after Melania, because it felt like it was just so obvious that so many new people were now going to come and do a coin, and it was going to be even like, maybe not even the biggest celebrities out there could cause the rest of the coins to go lower. So I think number one, it was a fumble by Trump. I think it could easily be closer to 100 billion now if that hadn't happened. And then secondly, I think that was when the market really came to the realization that this is going to nuke a lot of our bags. So that was not a pretty hour, I would say, or a few hours post that. And even on bounces, if I look down the prominent coins on that, when was it, a week ago? So Fartcoin, for example, which has been one of the best coins on Solana in terms of memes, was at 2.7 billion just after the Trump coin came out. It's now at 1.4. So it's down 50% since Melania dropped that coin. And that's like one of the top coins. So it tells you how bad it's been for some of the smaller coins too.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the Melania coin just made it also seem like not serious. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all here saying, yeah, like BlackRock, Bitcoin ETF, ETH ETF, like breaking down the SEC regulation. This is a big serious industry. And then you have like a Trump coin, and everyone's like a little bit like, it's kind of a bit rogue, but fine, it's Trump. And then having a Melania one like right after, which is retweeted by Trump's account, is like, there's obviously a team behind it who are making a ton of money on it. It kind of, I think, put the wrong taste in people's mouths a little bit. And I didn't love it. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump would have hit 100 billion
without that.
Yeah. I think
it wasn't just that sold off. Like Bitcoin sold off as soon as that happened. It went from
everything sold off. The entire market sold off. Yeah.
Like people saw that as bearish crypto that she dropped her coin.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Do you think if staking is allowed for ETFs, it could lead an ETH mood higher or another false dawn?
If staking is down for ETF, like I do think that's positive. I do think it's positive, but I think that's also going to be positive for Solana, right? Or any chain which has staking. So
yeah,
it might be a short window where ETH, gets staking and people come in, but I think that window now is much shorter than it was. If they got that last year and you had 6-7 months, maybe longer of inflows based on this staking yield, that would have helped. But I wouldn't hold your breath that this is going to be some like they've got a huge window where they're going to build up massive stockpile of inflows based on staking. Interestingly as well, like there is a bit of a fight going on at the moment in ETH. Like Vitalik is in open war with some of the core devs, and that has slightly extended to like traditional media, or at least TradFi media. And you've seen a few articles basically talking about how there's just too much conflict at the moment at ETH. And Vitalik's been writing a lot of blogs at the moment about the future of ETH. He seems to be fighting, and some of the Ethereum core devs have actually left. There was some talk actually from the Lido founder this week that they could create a separate Ethereum foundation, which would run parallel to what Vitalik basically heads. So I think ETH's in a tough spot, both from its use case, but also like this conflict has extended, and people are now a bit more aware about it in the fund manager TradFi world as well.
Yeah, it's never good to see like internal turmoil, and I think obviously ETH Foundation and all that stuff has been under a lot of focus. I think so. I think that stuff will continue. I think you're right. The staking argument is positive for ETH, but it seems very likely we'll have a Solana and Ripple ETF possibly at some point this year, and so there's risk that like that positive catalyst for ETH just gets stolen by something like Solana. But I think with the World Liberty Fi stuff buying a lot of ecosystem stuff, BlackRock obviously being heavily involved there as well, I think those are two potential good tailwinds for ETH. Despite that,
that's what I would say. So Larry Fink went on. I was at the World Economic Forum this week and did talk about that. He wants the SEC to imminently approve the tokenization of bonds and stocks. I feel like there is a chance that would. I mean, that predominantly has been done on ETH so far, done partly on Base. If BlackRock really align themselves with ETH here, then maybe that provides a bull case. So I think I'm more bullish on the RWA angle for ETH and that being accelerated, but I don't know if they have enough of a moat versus other chains on that either, or if like you might start to see again L2s really being built around that, and there's a lot of questions about whether that's even that valuable for ETH right now. So would BlackRock use Base, or would they just create their own L2 or create even their own L1, right? Like, I think we're going to see some experimentation there. So that's, I'm reserving judgment, but if I'm bullish on ETH, I'm bullish on RWAs for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, next question. Is there a sole proxy for UK ISA or SIP investors? I don't think there is there?
So there is a company.
Is there not a great? Is there not? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off there. There's like some. Isn't there like a grayscale Sol product?
There's also a company called Sol Strategies. I don't know if you've heard about this.
No.
I think it's Canadian based, but you may be able to buy it out of a UK ISA. This thing's up 15x since September, and they are trying to do a kind of a strategy similar to MicroStrategy, in that they're going to big, but with Sol. But then they're also going to be a bit more ingrained in the DeFi side of stuff. So I think they're going to be running validators. They're going to be they're like it's a bit more of an equity play rather than just we're just going to buy Bitcoin, right? So they're going to start doing stuff with the Solana a bit more from a DeFi perspective and also from a validator perspective. So that might be worth looking at if you can buy Sol Strategies. It is up 15x in 4 months, so like be aware, and it trades vastly higher than its current Sol's treasury, but that is one to pay attention to.
Yeah. All right, time for one more question. If someone takes profits and doesn't want to move those profits back to the conventional banking world, what would you suggest? Where would you? I think I know what you're going to say, but
I actually don't. So you don't want to take them back into
yeah. Where would you park? Like, if you've taken profits, where would you put it? I guess within. Doesn't necessarily say within crypto. It just says not if you don't want to put them back into the conventional banking world.
So you can look at the RWA world again. Like if you go into Maple Finance, which is one of the bigger RWA firms, you can invest in a range of different like almost they do like off-chain DeFi. So like for companies in crypto that are looking to like basically take loans, they also do like tax receivables financing. So there's a really good website called rwa.xyz. And if you go onto that, you can see like a range of different companies in the space that basically invest in either like US treasuries on chain almost, or they'll invest in credit, like high yield credit or personal credit. And I guess one of the biggest is Maple, but there's a few of them. So you can look at that. I don't really know. I'm getting way more bullish on collectibles again here. And the reason is I think we're about to go through an age of abundance here with AI, where AI is going to be making up and 3D printers and robots are going to be making a lot more of our products. So I get kind of bullish right now on, we've seen a big dip in luxury goods because of like the wealth effect coming out of China. And I actually think there's going to be a massive premium on man-made luxury goods, like an exquisite, Swiss watch, or Burgundy, where there's only they only make 50 bottles a year, and all that stuff is down a lot over the last few years because of what's happened in China. And I think if you have a longer term horizon, I actually think some of that stuff will soar back, because I think there's going to be a massive premium placed again on like human-made rare items. Yeah, so if you want to keep it out of crypto, that's where I go.
Cool. Well, I think with that we can wrap it up. That was REKT Vision. Before we go, we have a question for you. Let us know in the comments, when will Bitcoin become part of the US Strategic Reserve, if at all? If you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or any other platform, please let us know your responses and answers in the comments. Remember that tickets for the Real Vision gathering, which is happening in person in Miami next week, are still on sale. If you head over to realvision.com/CG2025, you'll be able to get yours there. Make sure you're following us on X, and next week we will be back. It will be exclusive on the Real Vision platform. Every month we host a Drinks with OSF and Mando session where we will just take your questions for the entire show. So if you're not a Real Vision crypto subscriber, if you head over to realvision.com/RVC, you'll be able to sign up and watch that. Timing will be to be confirmed next week, given I'll be in Miami, but most likely, hopefully, we'll be back on the same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, 4:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Fingers crossed we will see you guys next week, either online, or looking forward to meeting a bunch of people in person as well. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Yes.
Consensus Hong Kong 2025 is where the global crypto community converges to shape the next era of Web3. From February 18th through the 20th, Hong Kong becomes the meeting point for leaders across finance, technology, and digital assets. This isn't just a conference, it's where deals are made, partnerships are forged, and new opportunities emerge. Consensus features exclusive networking lounges, expert-led sessions, and invaluable insights from top industry voices. Whether you're expanding your network, building your brand, or closing your next big deal, this is the event that moves markets. Visit CoinDesk.com/consensus-HK to secure your spot and use Real Vision 15 for 15% off. Don't miss your chance to be part of the industry's defining moment.